Today we're discussing BioWare going all in on Mass Effect 5, Call of Duty making some interesting changes to its ranked matches, and is the Steam Deck losing steam after only 3 years in the market? Stick around to find out. Welcome, friends, to this week's episode of Good Playing With You, the weekly gaming podcast. I'm Dan Whitehill, and as always, I'm joined by my charismatic combo of Matts, Matt Lord.
Hey, how's it going?
And Matt Maulding.
Hey now.
I've got a lot of great stories, so let's jump into the headlines of the week. First up, we're looking at BioWare betting it all on Mass Effect 5. Maulding, you had the story.
Yeah, this is actually a two-part story. And first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Dragon Age. So EA announced last week that it was revising its outlook for the fiscal year after a slowdown in global football net bookings growth and Dragon Age, the Veilguard. It actually missed the company's internal targets by nearly 50%. And so this is a story that I grabbed from Rebecca Valentine at IGN. So in a press release, the company said it was reducing its expectations for the fiscal year ending March of 2025 from mid-single-digit growth to mid-single-digit decline. The largest culprit, EA says, was global football, aka EA Sports FC, which I don't even know what that is, to be honest, because I don't play sports games.
It's the new FIFA. They rebranded it.
It's the new FIFA. Oh, okay. Well, then there you go. Yeah. But EA also mentioned that Dragon Age engaged, and they put this in quotes, 1.5 million players during the quarter, which was down nearly 50% from the company's projections. It's worth noting that 1.5 million or thereabouts isn't an awful sales number, but companies overestimating sales targets is nothing new. When expectations were seemingly high, however, this doesn't bode well for EA and BioWare, which leads me to Ethan Gatch at Kotaku. So he wrote a story about BioWare betting it all on Mass Effect 5 after even more layoffs.
Okay, so but before you jump into that, we should acknowledge that EA has had a string of misfires, and starting all the way back with the original Mass Effect, they messed up. I mean, starting not the original, but I mean the original like part 4. I mean the original like reboot. Andromeda, yes, that was problematic. It had the weird faces. The story wasn't very great. The graphics weren't very good.
It was so broken. The what's it called? The pop-in on it was ridiculously bad. Like you had just basically a little circle around your guy where the artwork happened, and as you walked, you could see that circle move as the stuff popped in. It was really ugly.
Yeah. Ooh. And then when they talk about like 1.5 million player engagements for Dragon Age, it makes me think like, okay, if you're game sharing or you have someone who uses your console, then maybe they got only 1 million sales off of that thing. Like,
so that includes the EA subscription service. That if you're on that, you would have got it for free, and there was something else that it also included too.
Yeah, that is like just when you're putting engagement in quotes, it's just like, man, you
Not
are
sales.
reaching. You're reaching. Things aren't looking good. That's like to put in front of the board members and say, look, we got all these engagements, but it's like, oh, still not looking good.
Yeah, and then the change from FIFA, like. Anyway, I just wanted to emphasize the stakes for your next story because they definitely are a huge company that we expect big things from them, but sounds like they're putting it all on Mass Effect.
So it's a little risky. So the title here, BioWare is betting it all on Mass Effect 5 after even more layoffs. The only thing that seems certain at BioWare right now is that the studio's entire fate feels like it's riding on Mass Effect 5, a game that's still a long ways off. BioWare general manager Gary McKay tried to explain the current state of the studio in a new blog post. They have completely moved on from Dragon Age Veilguard, and the studio says it's being developed by a core team under the guidance of series veterans Mike Gamble, Preston, that's a name, Watermaniak, Derek Watts, Parrish Lay, and others. EA declined to say how many people BioWare still employs. In an email to Kotaku, a spokesperson writes, "While we're not sharing numbers, the studio has the right number of people in the right roles to work on Mass Effect at this stage of development." IGN reports that while some employees were moved to other projects within EA, some staff who had been working on the Veilguard were laid off. According to former BioWare producer Mike Dara on YouTube video last week, Mass Effect 5 is the only game they have in development now, and that's the first time that's happened in decades. Wow. So it really does sound like everything is riding on this. And if it's anything like the Veilguard, it has me really concerned for the future of BioWare.
Agreed.
I mean, just having a whole team dedicated, I mean, not even a whole, it's just like the whole company is dedicated to Mass Effect. It needs to be a 10 out of 10 right out of the gate. It cannot even risk being not good. Otherwise, I think we're going to have like an Ubisoft situation going on where we're just going to be, who knows, we might even be without Ubisoft and EA in the future at this rate. It's seriously looking
sure
that way.
EA will be fine, but it's BioWare that I'm afraid of, because they're known for these huge RPGs that are so well written, and these characters that you fall in love with. They created these worlds and this formula, and they did it so well. Unfortunately, they can't even live up to their past highs. And it does make me really concerned, because as these companies always jump into these online games for these microtransactions, and we see more and more of that. Well, we saw actually BioWare try their hand at it with the devastation of Anthem, one of the worst games I've ever played. That was them trying their online thing, and now they're trying to reverse course to go back to their roots and stumbling there too. So, man, I've just had such good memories of their games, and I really hope for their future.
I wouldn't say Anthem was one of the worst games I've ever played, but it certainly was. It was pretty, but it wasn't very fun. I did enjoy flying around. That was fun. But as far as the gameplay itself, it was pretty lackluster.
Let me ask you
the
guys
worst
this.
game I've ever played.
Do you think we're ever going to see another Dragon Age game?
No, it's done.
No, eventually, yes. They're going to dust it off in about a decade. They're going to get the graphics right. You know,
it's they're gonna rework the thing. It's just, there was big hopes for that one, and man, that thing just fell super flat. I mean, I just heard from you guys, and I was like, okay, I don't even need to crack into this thing, because I know it's gonna be just not it.
And the woke accusations are the very least of its problems.
I totally agree.
That. Yes, it's heavy-handed for sure, and it's very noticeable in it, but that is at the bottom of the list of the problems that game has.
100%.
Well, it you know what? It's also already $25 at GameStop.
Oh,
and so that's just telling.
I can't believe I bought it for $70.
Yeah, sorry. It's already $25. So that's that.
Mechanically, it was an okay game. It was just all the stuff surrounding it that was problematic.
Well, so going back to Mass Effect, do you guys have any sort of wish list things that you would like to see the new Mass Effect have? And right off the bat, I know one thing I was completely disappointed with Andromeda is no new aliens in your party. Like, there was not any new races. You went to a whole new galaxy and there were no new races of aliens for your party. That's got to be my number one for Mass Effect, is new alien races. What about you guys? Can you think of anything?
I just want some really good gunplay, because I thought the first and the second, I just played the Legacy. That was what it was called, right? The Legacy edition.
The collection?
The collection. Yeah. And I just thought the gunplay was actually really well done in that. And I'm hoping they have like that solid, like fun shooting mechanic in that, because I thought that was awesome. I like being able to use the powers the way you could, and then just like also jump right back into the gunfighting felt like really great. So I'm hoping they go back to almost like a 360 era type of gunplay for this one.
I think my wish list is probably the least popular. I know they're going to play it safe, and they've teased like Shepard coming back and that sort of thing, but I don't want any of that. I want, all new aliens. I want all new people. I don't want them to play it safe. I want a mature storyline that I don't feel like is talking down to me, trying to teach me something, or, being kid friendly, to be honest with you. I want, a hard hitting, like spy thriller kind of a ragtag team, coming together to overcome the odds, and, doing it in a really fun and violent, cool way. And it makes me concerned that they're just, when you gamble that big, they're afraid to take risks with these games. My fear is we literally are going to get Mass Effect 1 through 3, the collection, all over again. So
Oh, that is such a good call about the gamble. Like, you're right. They're for sure going to be playing it safe now. Like, having this
yeah.
much going into it, that you just nailed it. It's going to be a safe game. And I just need anymore. I'm just like, come on, I need a game that takes some sort of risk and just like puts it out on the line. Like, I don't think that's like possible anymore. It's like,
Not the size and scale of that
yeah,
these games are being created. They have to pretty much put out the same product every single time, just like Call of Duty, which is our next story. And Lord, I know you had that one.
oh yeah. So this is something that happened recently. It's official. Like, you can now turn off crossplay between console
Oh,
and
thank
PC
God.
for ranked
Finally.
matches. Yeah. So
Finally.
the change officially rolled out on January 28th, and the big news is as follows. This is coming directly from the Call of Duty blog post that dropped a couple days ago. So this is the big news. Of course, they do the balances, yada yada, but this is the big one. I was just like, everything else can just blow in the wind because this is what's up. In regards to crossplay, the following changes are being implemented at the launch of season 2, which was the 28th, to provide players on console with the option to select the platform pool they wish to matchmake with. So on PlayStation and Xbox, there's some in-game options. Ranked, if you have it on, it enables matchmaking with all gaming platforms when playing in ranked playlists. On, and then in parentheses, console only enables matchmaking only with other consoles and playing in ranked playlists. And then this is also something to note, may negatively impact matchmaking queue times or
I mean,
off.
that's fine.
Yeah.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, or off. It restricts ranked matchmaking to your current gaming platform only. And so and this is just my little takeaway. It's like, this is great in my mind. I think this is great, but um is this Triarch admitting to defeat to these PC cheaters? Like, are they just thinking there is no winning here? There's no end in sight to the cheaters, and like, would you want to see all games follow suit? I know Malding and we just discussed, like, Overwatch is doing this and Marvel's is doing this, and I'm surprised it took so long for Call of Duty to finally implement this system. But is cheaters, have they just won the day? Are we just never gonna get that
No.
under control?
No way. I think really what's happening here is just the controller types. When you've got two separate groups of people playing and inputting information into a game on two completely different systems, someone on a console with a controller and someone on a PC with a mouse and keyboard, you just can't keep up with mouse and keyboard. So it's ridiculous that two different control schemes are being pitted against each other when one doesn't have the opportunity to compete as high level as the other. And so being able to turn this off, yes, I'm super pumped to get rid of cheaters because all PC players are cheaters. But I'm also excited about just being able to, dominate console noobs.
Yes. And it's also funny that you mentioned just the inputs. And I've been hearing a lot of arguments saying that controller has an advantage anymore. I'm just here to tell you, playing both PC and controller, that is not true. Keyboard and mouse will always be superior. it will always be superior. So
well,
like,
and they say that because some of these games have an auto aim that
right.
they give
But
controllers, and that auto aim sometimes messes me up. Like I've got a good, especially I've noticed it in Call of Duty where I've got a good line on someone. I know I'm gonna snipe them in that little noggin, and the auto aim, someone will pass in front of them, and the auto aim messes me up. So
no, it's so true. I mean, Malding, you've experienced this in Overwatch for a bit now, because I know we've tried to play. And is this just something that's going to jump you back? Would this get you into Warzone ranked at this time?
Oh yeah, absolutely. If I can play ranked with all the same console users, I'll definitely try it out. And knowing that it's much harder to cheat on console than it is to cheat on a PC, that also helps me out too. One of the things that Marvel Rivals is also doing is they are I'm not sure if it's been implemented already or they're planning to implement it. I think implemented already, is that they can detect if you are on a console using a mouse and keyboard, and you'll get banned for it through Marvel Rivals. So watch out. You don't want to try to do that because they can detect it.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, I think Overwatch sort of had that same thing. I believe it the term zimming, which is the funniest word.
I zimmed earlier today.
Yeah, me too. And yeah, I hope this becomes a regular thing for all games. I just think, why not just if the console players want to play, themselves and not have to worry about PC players and wait a little longer for queue times, I think let them have it.
Yeah,
I definitely
don't
agree.
mind, especially in Marvel Rivals when the queue times are 2 seconds.
Seriously.
Yeah. All right, moving on. I did want to talk about the Steam Deck. For once, it's me bringing it up and not Matt Lord. Now, I admittedly was probably a little harsh on the intro, but it's only to get Matt Lord's goat about the Steam Deck being potentially out of date after only 3 years. But that's kind of something, that the PC kind of realm has to deal with a little bit more than us who are on consoles, because we've got the locked specs for such a long time, or for so many years, like 7-8 years, and that games are actually made for these consoles. Whereas PC, as we all know, is a little bit more of the Wild West, with specs changing all of the time. And that's essentially where this story is coming from. It is the Steam Deck has a serious Switch 2 problem, written by Jason Evangelo from Forbes. Essentially, his argument is, with the Switch 2 coming, the Steam Deck might be looking a little bit more obsolete. And at first, face value, that does sound strange, but listen to his logic here. He writes, I never expected to write an article directly comparing the Steam Deck with the Switch 2. After all, they exist in completely different universes and ecosystems. One is a PC-based gaming handheld with access to tens of thousands of games spanning more than 20 years, and the other is a console you buy primarily to experience the wonder and whimsy of Nintendo's excellent first-party titles, right? But a perfect storm has been coalescing since the mid-2024, threatening to make Steam Deck more and more irrelevant in a growing sea of powerful competitors. It's the growing list of games that are simply too demanding to run properly, if at all, on the Steam Deck. That list is punctuated by Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, last year's terrific indie adventure from Machine Games, and Bethesda was the first game in history to require GPU with built-in ray tracing. And that's really what the key thing here is. They're honing in on these chips and where we are in technology that can and can't do this ray tracing, and how they do this ray tracing. But with Machine Games, Indiana Jones game, there was no menu option to disable the GPU ray tracing. And while it's true that the Steam Deck's processor does have basic ray tracing support, actually flipping it on in games tends to bring the system to its knees. So when it's mandatory, as it is with the demanding Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, it's an unplayable mess. As such, Valve lists it as unsupported on the Steam Deck. But now the second game in history to require ray tracing has entered the picture, and that's Doom: The Dark Ages. Combined with the game's requirements of an NVIDIA RTX 2060 Super at minimum, this likely spells, well, doom for the Steam Deck's chances of running it as well. More games are requiring built-in ray tracing and are sure to follow in 2025. Beyond the new Doom and new indie games, graphically intense titles like Space Marine 2 and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth are barely playable on Valve's terrific but aging handheld. If a Steam Deck is the only viable device you have for PC gaming, you can muddle through, but it will be a pitiful playing experience with the slowdown and blurry textures. It's widely held belief that the Switch 2 is powered by an NVIDIA Ampere GPU derived from the company's 30 series of RTX graphics cards, which includes second generation ray tracing support from the company that pioneered it. All of this adds up to the sobering situation for Valve's Steam Deck, and indeed for devices like the Legion Go and the ROG Ally as well. Like I said, it feels like we've jumped timelines, but the Switch 2 seems poised to give the current slate of PC powered handhelds a very loud wake up call. Perhaps Valve should accelerate its plans for Steam Deck 2. So that's some, kicking some dirt in the face of the old Steam Deck, and I was really surprised to hear it. It does seem to be some hardware limitations, but on, consoles, manufacturers are, designing for a specific one spec, and PC, it's like herding cats over there in the Wild West. So I couldn't resist this story, and I'm dying to know, Lord, what do you think?
Well, I have the simple solution. We got to get rid of this ray tracing gimmick, and then you got yourself a powerful Steam Deck again. This is an interesting one because I think the Switch 2 reaction episode, I was touting the Steam Deck to be more powerful, but I stand corrected. It sounds like the Switch 2 is gonna, have a lot of power to it. And to be honest, there's the difference here that I've always found fascinating with the Steam Deck is there are ways to improve the performance of the system using this Proton engine that they're always finding new ways to optimize. That's the difference with the Steam Deck. And that comes from it being a Linux based system. And that, to me, I feel like is where a lot of the system gets these unlocks where all of a sudden there'll be an update and then there's improvements to game performances along the way. And that is something I will be very surprised if they wound up, delivering on the Switch 2. So those types of differences to me, I think still make the Steam Deck stand out. And you're not going to be able to play Half-Life 2 or Half-Life 1 on the Switch 2. Like, just saying. But I do agree. I think I think it's great because the Switch 2 is going to put pressure on Valve to release a Steam Deck 2 sooner than expected. I think to keep that momentum going and keep the competition up, I think it definitely would be advantageous for them to bring in a new system, a more powerful system. I think that'd be awesome. But
well, how soon is too soon? Because the Steam Deck just released in February of 2022.
Yeah, it's really not that old. You're right. I think too soon. I mean, so that's the thing. People are like talking about it. There'll be rumblings like Switch 2 time or not Switch 2, Steam Deck 2. But I mean, I don't think you can go wrong with the basic Steam Deck for at least a few more years until like games. That's the one thing that makes me nervous, that they're going to make something like ray tracing, like there's no other option. Like you have to have it on and it's going to break the game in a way where it's just not playable. That is going to be the deal breaker for the Steam Deck. So I haven't ran into that because I didn't play Indiana Jones or
you're not missing anything.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I played that on the PC and it was fine and dandy. It looked great there, but I didn't wind up playing it on the Steam Deck because I'm just like, I got the PC here. But I mean, I just think until like, I think they're going to see like what is required. And it sounds like if ray tracing is going to just be the standard and it's going to be botched, I think we'll see a Steam Deck 2 in, I would say 2 years. 2 years. Like 2027.
Can you upgrade the hardware at all on a Steam Deck? Is there you can't unlock anything. You can't put more.
I swapped the SSD on it. I had a 64 gig and when it boosted up to like 256 way back in the day. And you can do crazy things like improve the RAM, but that just like is more trouble than it's worth, I feel like. But it pains me to see my beautiful Steam Deck under attack like this. So Dan, thanks for bringing this to my attention. Yeah. Appreciate it.
I think where the Steam Deck has Switch 2 is just the library. Like, yes, we have Nintendo's, proprietary IPs and stuff, but you can't beat that, hundreds of thousands of games probably
100%
that you can get on a Steam Deck and play wherever you want.
And
so
that's the thing,
a hard
like,
thing to beat.
I think it fails to mention that there's still games like Metal Gear Solid 5 that run at a locked 60 FPS on the Steam Deck in handheld mode, and it just is a beautiful thing. And there's plenty of other games out there that are Steam Deck verified that just are like AAA titles that just even Red Dead 2 plays great on the Steam Deck. Even the reboot plays great on the Steam Deck. There's just there's so many games out there that just look incredible that I don't think then again, we haven't seen what the Switch 2 can do. So if it's really beautiful, then hey,
this is all rumors and conjecture and estimates and leaks and stuff like that.
I'm excited.
But one of us will just to put it out there. One of us got into the Switch 2 release, so we'll be excited to bring that to everyone.
For that. I can't wait to find out who. I think it's me.
Yeah, that's right. I hope so. I hope it's me too.
I know. So I really hope it's me.
So that just means that coming this April, one of us will get the chance to go hands-on with the Switch 2. We will bring you a special podcast episode once we get our grubby mitts on that Switch 2, and we will do a quick 30-minute explainer, everything that we have experienced with it, our thoughts, our excitement, our questions, and all that sort of stuff. And that's something you can look forward to this April. But continuing on with the show and staying with the theme of hardware that might not be optimized for some games, Lord, you had a story about the Series S for us from Microsoft.
Yeah. So, we had our little chat about, I think it was about Wukong and Series S and how we were a little bummed that Microsoft is catering to this thing. Well, keep getting used to it because the Series S is still going to be required hardware for game releases in the future. So this comes from VGC's Tom Ivan. Xbox boss Phil Spencer has reiterated that the company doesn't have any plans to allow the release of Series X exclusive games. It's currently a mandatory requirement for developers to ensure that their games are compatible with both Series X and Series S in order to release them for Microsoft consoles. In a new interview with Destin Legari, Microsoft's gaming boss claims that having to develop games for the Series S could be advantageous for studios targeting a variety of platforms, including handheld gaming platforms. Asked about the potential of dropping or relaxing Xbox Series S requirements, Spencer said, "In a way, I think about it in almost exactly the opposite way right now. With the rise of handheld PCs and even the introduction so far of the Switch 2, as developers were building on more device specs from lower powered because they're battery powered devices all the way through things that plug into the wall." That was a mouthful. I actually think we have a real advantage because we've been targeting S for quite a while, that our games have been built and they're portable across many different specs. So very interesting. Hey, it doesn't look like they're dropping the S requirement anytime soon. So I just thought, hey, since we spoke about it, it's a very interesting thing because, again, we're jumping back to talking about handhelds and how they're claiming that the S is actually doing the right stuff because there's these other devices that can handle these, I don't know, I guess you could say lower quality games. I just was getting a giggle out of it because I know, Dan, this thing's probably going to be boiling your blood over there. So what do you think about this statement from our boy?
It's no surprise. Although, to be honest with you, as I've stated before, Microsoft has a history of bending the rules towards the end of their generation. And so we'll see what happens. And if they really hold fast on this rule, this could be something. He could be just posturing for support studios because it's too early for them to cut this thing off. They have to go the full 7-8 years. But in a weird way, to circle back to our previous conversation, could the Series S be helping hold back the industry and helping the Steam Deck stay more relevant? Maybe the Steam Deck will have a little bit longer life because developers have to target this spec. And yes, the ray tracing is a thing. Maybe this toggling on and off is just an anomaly. Although I do find it in the conspiracy theorists out there say,
give it to me.
Okay, here's the real conspiracy if you want to know. Bethesda is owned by Microsoft. No surprise. Microsoft is competing from a software OS level with Steam. As Lord noted earlier, the secret sauce to the Steam Deck that makes it so much better than everything else is its software. It's not running Windows. It's running its own system. And that threatens the Windows monopoly. So people are saying, sure is funny. Two of the biggest games, Doom and Indiana Jones, that have problems with this Steam Deck and Valve's software running it are coming from a Microsoft corporation. I just want to put that out there.
Whoa.
I know that's deep state, real conspiracy theory, but it's interesting.
I love that deep state shit. Okay, so like that is such an interesting. So do you think they're just going full sabotage mode then with releasing games that are focusing on?
There's no way that was a corporate edict. I think it happens to be ironic. I don't know.
I love it.
It could be something in the back of your mind for this week.
No, well, you bring up a good point. I think I have seen some rumblings online talking about how the Steam OS is going to be coming to PCs as a standalone operating system, and yes, it is going to put pressure on Windows.
Yes, I agree. That Steam OS is very popular, very nimble, very light, runs games really well, is very highly respected, and it is a threat to their business.
Yes. Holy. Yeah. So Malding, are you going to jump on board on a Series S at some point?
Huge mistake of Microsoft to make this requirement. It really makes no sense to me. I love they just came out this week with this big thing about how, they've been talking about it for months now, how they really want to focus on being able to play video games everywhere, that you buy it once and you can play it on PC, you can play it on your Xbox. That is all fantastic. But if you can't play the best games in the best version of those games because a part of your system is holding it back, then that's a huge handcuff to their business. And I think that it's silly. They should be okay with some games not being available on the less expensive system. They'll just have to put a little thing that says, hey, this is only for Xbox Series X. This won't work on Series S. Sorry, if you want to buy a Series X, buy a Series X to be able to play.
But that's not the promise that Phil Spencer and the Xbox team made gamers at the very start of the generation. They said there will be parity between these two systems. We are going to guarantee.
They shouldn't have made that promise. That was a terrible promise to make, and they've broken lots of other promises, and they should break this one too.
Well, I'm stoked because my Series S is still getting a lot of love. Sorry, X owners.
But we talked about it a few weeks ago that you were playing not Chernobyl. What's the
Stalker? Yes.
Stalker.
Yes.
And there was a difference in the actual game between what you played on the S and what you played on PC.
Yes. That is interesting. I need to honestly do like a deep dive.
Do a report.
That was strange. Seeing how different the two were, I think that would be like a blowing the top off this thing type of investigation, because I think a lot of games are that way.
Yeah, you're not playing the same game. So that's already makes what they're saying a lie. If they've cut things out of Stalker to be able to make it playable on the S, they're already
It's already not a parody.
They found a loophole. Yeah.
Crazy.
Anyway. What also makes me a little bit curious about this, though, is just one more thought is, if game companies are not concerned about their games not being playable on the Steam system, then does that mean that the Steam Deck install rate is at so low that it doesn't impact them fiscally, so that they don't have to carry? You know what I mean? Like, it makes me curious how these companies decide which platforms to target.
It's a great question.
But I know that Steam has some deep pockets,
right?
So
Right.
I think that they can take some risks that maybe other companies can't take.
I mean, there's a lot of talk that people have replaced their PC, like literally their PCs, with the Steam Deck. So the popularity of this thing is like,
Okay, that's crazy talk.
Yeah, that is crazy. But I really think the Steam Deck is very, very popular and has sold very well for Valve. So
I know two people that have one.
Right. And I know only a handful as well, which is kind of surprising, but I mean, people go hard for this thing. So
I mean, I only know one person that has a Series S, so
yeah.
That's saying something right there. Since it isn't like 99% of the Xbox player base at Series S players right now.
I think it's 50-50.
I have no idea.
Initially, it did outpace the sales of the X because it is the cheaper version. But then as the generation's gone on, they've seen that the X has caught up and is now surpassing, because
that's good.
I hate to say it, but real gamers are going to want the best possible experience out there. That's what I'm putting my money towards.
And let me just say this. I would have gotten the X had it been available. This was peak COVID time. I just ran across it in the wild and I had to pull the trigger. Otherwise, I would have gotten that.
I mean, a real gamer would have bought it day one when they announced, as soon as you had it. So it's fine.
But I already learned the hard way.
He's just being a dick,
because I bought PS5 pretty much day one and I got screwed on that system. So it's like I would have rather just had an X.
A system.
I honestly just like, I don't feel like I've used the PS5 like nearly enough.
Well, that's because Sony quit making single player games they're known for.
I know.
What happened with the PS5 generation? Like, PS4 was so great.
Dude, there is nothing to talk about with the PS5. It is the most dead generation of all time. Like,
except for Astrobot.
Yeah. I mean, I guess Astrobot, and maybe I do need to play that, but it's like, other than that, I seriously feel like
$600 system to play a platformer game.
Right.
That's makes me real happy.
I mean, I wish I got the X. Let's just put it that way.
We wish you did too.
Yeah.
And we wish that PlayStation 5 would step up their game output. That is crazy. They need to start buying some studios. But I'm getting besides the point, because I wanted to tell you another funny, really crazy story when it comes to video games and fighting.
Yeah.
But this one has to do with a UFC fighter. This is the craziest story I want to read to you guys. At first, it cracked me up, and I went through all the emotions like this. It weirded me out. Then it cracked me up, and then it weirded me out again, and I'll explain why. The title is UFC Fighter Flies Across the Country and Surprises Fortnite Trash Talker at Work to Choke Him Out. This comes from Zach Suizen at Kotaku. And the subheadline is MMA star Brian Ortega put a young man to sleep and then posted it online. Now, at first, it sounds crazy, so bear with me, and then I'll explain it, and then I'll explain why it really is crazy. But first, he says, UFC featherweight contender Brian Ortega likes to play Fortnite online with other people. However, one player started trash talking him too much, and Ortega made a bet with them that he would make the trip from one side of the United States to the other just to put him in a chokehold. And he did just that and recorded it for social media. As reported by Bloody Elbow, Ortega, who is famous for his MMA holds, recently posted an Instagram video in which he explained that a fellow Fortnite player talked too much smack. It is available on Championship Rounds. That's where I found it on, and it was on X. And if you search it, the video is still there. But essentially, he's like, this guy talking too much trash, so I'm going to fly from LA to North Carolina to settle a bet involving a sleeper hold. He said, people ask me, play with me on Fortnite. Cool, said Ortega. The only problem is you guys keep talking trash, and you know what? So I have an online homie talking mad smack. The real reason why I flew to North Carolina was because he was talking shit. We made a bet, and I said, I'll fly over there and choke you out. And here he is. I showed up to his damn job, and I had to wait for him to finish his job. So now I'm going to choke your ass out. A bet's a bet. Now, when you watch the video, they are clearly joking and having a good time, or kind of joking. The kid knows that he's going to be put in the chokehold, and he does consent to it, appears, and he sits in the chair. But then, and the article continues, above you can watch a video of him choking the young man out who he met in Fortnite. To be clear, the person in the video seems to be consenting and laughs about it, but then passes out. So the clip is a bit disturbing because the guy, the Ortega, takes the kid and says, all right, you ready? And he's like, yeah. And then he chokes him, and the guy's like, being choked. And then because Ortega's actually a really good fighter, he knows, he's like, okay, I'm going to take this kid out. Like, he says, put your hands up. So I can tell when you go to sleep. So the kid puts his hands up, and then he starts to tap. And then you see the kid go limp. And you're like, what the hell? The kid starts to like convulse a little bit, then comes to and laughs about it and calls the whole experience strange. And strange is an understatement, because boy, oh boy, at the end of that video, you're left wondering, like, did he have to really choke the dude out? Like, it is.
Hey, a bet's a bet.
I agree, but he was convulsing unconscious for a split second. Like, that's just not right.
Yeah, that reminds me of like those Russian dudes who are like angry in Counter-Strike and they go like shank someone. But okay, but he's like a friend. It's just, the whole thing is so strange. So it's kind of set up, but
yeah, it's like PR
I feel like this article was a bait and switch, because I really thought it was a surprise.
Yeah,
that the guy, like, someone was shit talking, and the guy was like, "I'm gonna come choke you out," but they had the whole thing set up. Nah.
Well, maybe are we getting like an Ortega Fortnite skin or something, like the chokester?
There you go.
Or something. Like, what is this?
I thought it was a joke too, because I thought, oh, he's in on it. He's just going to choke him a little bit, choke. But he puts him out. He puts him to sleep. That's
wow.
Oxygen's important for your brain.
Right.
What's a few brain cells?
Yeah, seeing someone deprived of oxygen is a little upsetting. I'm not gonna lie.
Man, remind me not to play with that dude.
For real.
Yeah,
you guys try that shit, you're out.
Yeah. You can play with them, just don't make a stupid bet with them.
Yeah. That's for sure.
And he like posted it online. I'm just a little surprised by this, but it's pretty funny because he really did it. He took it all the way. Usually you just talk.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, I don't know.
Well, that's a crazy story. Also totally crazy this week is the story of Malding you have in Marvel Rivals.
Yes, I love this story. I've been sitting on this story for a week, and I'm so happy to be able to talk about it, because I've been a huge Marvel Rivals fan since it came out. And Paul Tassi at Forbes had this story, and it's been actually all over, but I'm just pulling it from Paul Tassi himself, because I love him. The Marvel Rivals hero that can hit Grandmaster doing 0 damage. They call him a heal bot, and it turns out that's more true than anyone realizes. A specific character in Marvel Rivals was played by someone to prove a point, and they ended up landing at the ultra high Grandmaster ranked tier of the game with 0 kills and even 0 points of damage. I have a little update on that, however. That would be Habuski, who shared the achievement on Reddit. The character in question is Rocket Raccoon, easily the best person to try this with because of his moveset. Again, this was 0 kills or damage, update, and he ended up with 3,400 plus assists and 2.9 million points of healing. Rocket may be in for some nerfs, however, not because of this specific achievement, but he's now the second highest performing hero in the game with a very high 54% win rate, second only to the super buff Storm, and a huge 32% pick rate with only a 1% ban rate. The healers behind him are Mantis at number 4 and Loki at number 9. But here's the update. His name, No Damage Rocket on Twitter, accidentally did some damage right before hitting Celestial rank as he was destroying a Loki clone. An ulting Cloakinet dagger passed in front of him, and he recorded 22 points of damage. He has since asked the devs to reverse the damage, and they rightfully declined. So now he is officially a Little Damage Rocket. Incidentally, streamer Ninja also called out No Damage Rockets this week across the entire game, but who cares what he thinks? And I say that specifically because I then switched to playing Rocket Raccoon in Marvel Rivals and went up at least 3 ranks. I am now almost actually, I don't know what comes after gold, so I'm at gold 1 right now, and as soon as I pop in, I'm assuming it's diamond or platinum is going to be next, and I've been playing Rocket, heal botting with him, and just having a lot of fun. So yes, it's just another case of people playing a game a little bit differently than what you're supposed to normally play. I love those kind of stories, and this one specifically hit me right here.
And I just can't emphasize how huge of an achievement this is, because when you play Rivals and you're a healer, you know just how easy it is to miss your heal and do some damage against an enemy. Like that happens constantly.
Well, that's why Rocket is specifically good for this, is because his heal doesn't do any damage at all. His escapes do no damage, and his other thing is to res people and give armor. So
okay.
The only way you can do damage is if you right trigger or right click, whatever you do in PC, is the only way you can do it.
Gotcha. I'm so used to playing Lena Dunham, aka Luna Snow. That if you when you're throwing your little ice particles, you do damage I'm like, I'm doing so much damage, I don't know what's going on. So I thought maybe the raccoon was in that same vein. I'm like, wow,
yeah, you play him differently.
Do that.
Yeah.
So
and incidentally, I rocketed up on heals, by the way. Now I do like 32,000 worth of heals on a game when I heal bot Rocket. And I have a lot of fun doing it, which is what matters.
I need to fire him up for sure. But Dan, we were just saying it's time for you to get into this thing.
Oh, I don't know about that just yet, but
so much fun.
It is. It's a good time, Dan.
All right. Sometime, not now, because now it is time for listener emails of the week. All right. If you want to suggest a topic, feel free to hit us up at goodplayingwithyou@gmail.com. This week, Molding, I think you had the first topic.
Yeah, I was very curious if you guys could think of some of the best video game boss fights you've ever had, because I was thinking about how excited I am for Monster Hunter Wilds coming out in a couple weeks. And then that started thinking of one of my favorite boss fights. So I'll go ahead and start it off. In Monster Hunter World, there is this big gold dragon, and I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's Kulv Taroth. I think that's how it's pronounced. And this boss fight is so much fun, and I ran it so many times when I was big into Monster Hunter World. It's like 2 different stages. You knock off pieces of his carapace to be able to pick up, and you can pick up those pieces and use them for crafting. It is such a fun fight, but it's so dangerous because if you don't know how to do it and you're playing with other people, it's really easy to team wipe with it. But it's just it's a beautiful environment. You're in this underground thing, and then you go into this volcano, and he's just this humongous dragon with his big tail. Oh, I love that fight so much. So what are some of the fights that you guys have had that you've really enjoyed?
This one, I thought this was a great question, Molding. For me, when I think of just like a crazy boss fight that always stands out in my mind, the Cleric Beast from Bloodborne. It is literally
such a good one.
Yeah, it's literally the first boss in the game, and this thing just kicks your ass. Like, it honestly is so hard. It honestly feels impossible. And then you beat him, and you're just like, I just did what it's an amazing feeling. You're like, how did I do that? That was so incredible. This is a massive creature thing with hair all over it, and you're just like you're fighting for your life in this situation, and you finally take it down, and man, what a feeling. Because I remember initially taking on Bloodborne, and I think I stopped one time on that boss because it is that difficult. It will just wipe you clean. So that one, I had to go with the Bloodborne. I know that's a little basic, but hey,
it was on my list too. When I was thinking of this, it was totally one of the ones I thought about too.
Sweet. Heck yeah.
No, that's awesome. Especially because when I started thinking about this one, I was like, okay, I don't want to go with like some of the old classics. I want to think of like some new classics. Like, what are the new ones? That's where my mind was going with this. Because of course, Psycho Mantis from Metal Gear, and hopefully you guys didn't put or like the first time that you fell out like Ganon or Bowser or something like those are classics for sure. But what are these new classics? That's where my mind went in for this. And my thing is, I always love when video games are the first to do something, or they do something in a unique way that I've never experienced. And the first thing that came to mind, to be honest with you, was the beauty of the boss fight that is the beginning of God of War 2018. When Baldur shows up, he's known as the Stranger. You don't know who he is. You're in a cabin.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Oops. You're in a cabin with your son. It's snowy and cold. You're just trying to protect him and teach him. And then all of a sudden, this man, the stranger, comes to the door, knocks on it, and starts picking a fight with Kratos. And he's cussing him out. He's saying, "I know who you are and where you've been hiding," and yada yada. And this guy's smaller than Kratos, so you don't really understand what's going to happen or how much power he adds. And eventually, after backhanding Kratos, he goes to finally he punches the stranger, and the stranger like goes down in the snow, and then he looks up and he's like, finally, because he's been waiting to pick a fight with this guy the whole time. And when he does, he uppercuts Kratos, and Kratos flies over his whole house way up into the sky and lands in his backyard. And there begins one of the coolest openings to a video game that I've ever seen in my life. It is the most cinematic fight. You're going through and doing these moves, but then every once in a while he'll catch an arm and they'll go close up for like more dialogue, and then it comes apart and someone swings a tree, and it's like these really powerful characters itself. It's like the Marvel universe in a way, like on crack, like a Marvel movie where they just have these really cool, intricate fight scenes, but it was happening in a video game. And that was something that was so unique to me, so cinematic and so beautiful, and really set the tone for that game. I couldn't wait to play the rest of it. And it really is why the first game, the 2018, is the better one than the one that most recently came out. But gorgeous fight, jaw-dropping animation, and really all one camera take, as you know they do with the God of War, and definitely left in a really cool impression with me.
Great pick.
I look forward to playing it at some point. I've never played it, so I don't know the fight at all, but it sounds awesome.
Yeah, Malling, play the first one for sure.
That's why I tried to like paint the picture, because it's a really cinematic fight.
Yeah,
no, that sounds awesome,
and it's cool. Like you nailed it, because when the stranger comes in, he's just like this scrawny dude. Like and then the way they show how powerful he is really like crazy. It just like blows your mind. You're like, how is this dude doing what he's doing? I think they have like a crazy rock crushing moment too, where like Kratos goes flying into some rocks. It's like,
oh, and then he comes back later. I don't want to spoil it too much, but doggy.
Yes.
All right, Baldy, say your next one before I spoil everything.
Something to look forward to. My next one is because I started playing once again, like the third time, Tears of the Kingdom, and I got to you do the Wind Temple. Awesome. The Wind Temple, super fun, and then you fight the first boss, who is this giant, like flying centipede-looking thing, like worm thing. I don't even know how to explain it, but he has these. His name's what's his name? Colgera. And what you do is you fight the whole thing in the air. So you have to use your your thingy, whatever that thingy is. And you have to use it to float, to keep floating. And then you unequip it to dive down. And the first two times, the whole thing, I played it by shooting his little ice circles in his body as he's flying around. And then this time, as I was playing it, I played it completely different and found out that you could unequip your paraglider and dive into them and destroy them that way instead of shooting them with an arrow. It was like a whole new way to play this boss fight, and I absolutely loved it. And that's what inspired me to make this question, is playing that through again. I was like, oh my God, this boss fight's so awesome that I didn't even know there were multiple ways to fight through it. And so that's why it made my list.
That's a good one. I thought of that as well. That is such a good one.
Yeah.
And then I would like to just side note, any boss that you can beat in Returnal, which is the PS5 goated game, by the way, you guys, I'm telling you, any boss in that game that you can beat is satisfaction, because those are just super hard bosses. Some of them, I mean,
should I play Returnal or God of War first?
That's a good question. Probably God of War first, but because Returnal is going to be like, You can sink a lot of time to that.
I can return to it over and over again.
Return to that, but Returnal will just suck you in. I'm telling you.
All right, is that your pick though, Lord?
Yeah, that was it.
Nice. And then for my last one, I did take it back a little bit to the remake of Shadow of the Colossus. Did you guys ever play that game?
Oh yeah.
Oh my God. It was the first time I had played a game, and I know other ones have done it, like Sifu and others, but it's like just like boss battles, and it was awesome that the game, there wasn't much life. There were maybe little lizards, and there was your horse, and that was it. They're all and this princess woman you're trying to save. But the coolest thing is it's just like 12 boss battles, and right in the middle of the game you get to the 6th boss battle, I think, or 7th. It's the phalanx. And to be honest with you, this boss battle was so good it ruined pretty much the boss battles and the rest of the game, up until the end. The ending was also great. But this creature, also a flying creature, is fantastic. He's in the desert area. He's super huge. He's like the biggest one in the game. And these boss battles are like puzzles, and that's the cool part of the game. You have to figure out how to do it. This one, you got to go riding on your horse to catch up with them, and you use arrows to hit these sacks so that he kind of gets wounded and he comes down, and he puts like this. He's got these fins, and he puts a fin into the sand, and then you have to jump from your horse onto his fin. Then he goes back up, and then he's got fur on his back, and so you have to hold on to the fur as he's trying to buck you off, and your hold meter's going down, and the music's swelling, and it's making you crazy, and you're getting all sweaty. And for a brief second, there will be these little guards, and a little glowing thing will like show up, and you have to hit it perfectly. And when you do, he like freaks out and he rolls over 360, and you have to grab on again, and eventually he throws you off, and it starts all over again. But man, oh man, what a fun boss battle that was, and just figuring out how to work it, and just such a huge. I'd never fought something so big in a video game. In fact, I think all bosses need to be super huge, or at least one of them in the game, because this one was such an amazing experience.
That's another game that I've missed too. People love that game, and
testament to the PS2.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah, it was a blast. That was such a good Malding. That would be right up your alley. You should definitely crack.
Yeah,
that one
no, it really does. I feel like I've missed out on it, but I think there's still opportunities to go back and play it.
It's good. The control scheme isn't as like modern enough for me on this one, so it's a little bit like, oh, you could have done this better. Could have done a Brother of Solid, but anyway, still a fantastic game. And then the next article, moving on, or the next topic for debate.
Oh, yeah.
Was this yours, Lord?
This was mine. Yeah, just a quick one. If you could be better at something in your gaming portfolio, what would it be? Because I just love thinking about how, like, man, like jumping into RPG characters is always so difficult for me. Like, I am always freaking out about which skill points I want to put into which skill points. And I just want to have, like, I would love as a gamer to be 100% confident where I'm putting these skill points into. Yeah. Like, I would love that. Like, because I feel like some people really have like a natural ability, just like, I'm going to throw it in here. I'm going to throw it in luck. I'm going to throw it in stamina. I'm going to put it in vigor. And it's just like, they know. For me, I feel most comfortable if I'm following some sort of build guide. Like, I pretty much have to, because otherwise I freak and get like nervous about breaking a character, because I've been totally trolled by my broken Skyrim characters in the past. So it's a little embarrassing.
I've never looked at a guide to build any of my RPG characters, but I don't have that anxiety. I'm like, yeah, I'll put it here. I'll put it here. I'll put it here.
How? Like, you just do it and you know you're doing it right? Yeah. Because I feel like that's high stakes.
I'm okay with doing it wrong. Like, if I do it wrong, then I do it wrong. And
maybe that's just where I just need to get my mind right.
Well, if you don't mind, I want to piggyback your answer, because honestly, my answer was very similar to yours, in the same wheelhouse. Well, my first answer, of course, was I want to be better at first-person shooters. I want to be able to decimate.
You got to play them first. Come on, come play them with us.
Oh, please! The amount of hours and stuff I put into Fortnite, like, I should be amazing. So that's something, of course, I want to be better for my portfolio. But really, like, similar to yours, Lord, it's like what I do is I do put my skill points in these trees, and then like sometimes they'll be like, oh, it's only $100 or something cheap to like respec, but I rarely ever do. And then I will play like almost 100 hours in these games and very little rigid exploration, and I'm doing myself a disservice, and I know this, but it's like sometimes I fall in love. Like, as much as Diablo 4 was on the fence for me, I got the rabies power, and suddenly I could bite almost like this guy, and everyone got rabies in the game. It was so fantastic that I honestly can't play that character any other way because it's so fun, and I'm so addicted to rabies. How could you not love rabies? And so I get stuck in these builds, and I can't break out of them, and I don't try other stuff, and I know I'm missing part of the game, but I wish I could change that about myself. Like,
you got to mix it up. You got to give it all the fair shake.
Diablo is all about respecking. You got to you respect constantly in Diablo.
Rabies, bro. It's all about
part of the game. Rabies is your thing. Malding, what about you?
So mine is definitely patience. I have very little patience with some games. Some games I have a lot of patience with, like Soulsborne games, tons of patience, yards of patience, miles of it. But some games I don't. And a couple weeks ago, I said one of my New Year's resolutions was to replay what you got in the background right there, Red Dead Redemption 2. And I want to say I'm a very bad cowboy because I'm done. I don't want to play it ever again. Getting on that horse, I have no patience for riding that effing horse. Why couldn't they let me hold down a button or do something? You have to tap that button to get anywhere in that game, and I am over it. I can't go back to that game ever again.
Well, I will say they didn't change that. The first one, still you had to tap that damn button. I'm really surprised.
In the first one too, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, that's been a bit of a drag.
Oh, such a bad cowboy. But then the other thing is Dan introduced me to Cult of the Lamb a few weeks ago too, which I started playing. And the gameplay in that, I just have no patience to wait to be like, to look at the enemies and how they're bouncing around to hit them at the right time. I just go in swinging and trying to hit them as many times as I can. And if I had more patience, I think I'd be better at those type of games. But I don't have it. So patience is mine.
That's such a good answer. I wanted to say the same thing, but you swiped it. I think that's a normal thing, especially when I'm like, you know what? I just don't have time for this. Like, I want to play games. And that's what I felt about Red Dead Redemption 2 as well. I was just like, I ain't got time for this shit. I want to play something that's fun.
I think as a gamer, when you have a taste of something that you're like, I know this could be improved. Like, for instance, the horse riding situation where Assassin's Creed Odyssey had a really good horse riding mechanic. That was like perfect.
Yep.
It's really hard to go back.
Yep. Yeah. Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, definitely.
Good stuff, guys.
Definitely. I appreciate those questions. Well, that pretty much wraps it up for this week. If you're watching on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're listening on a podcast, please tell like 5 friends. And on behalf of Matthew Moulding, Matt Lord, and myself, Dan Whitehill, thanks for joining us. And as always, good playing with you.
Good playing
with you.